Good morning. This is Wednesday morning's edition of Newsline. I'm Sonali Wanigabaduge. Our guest this morning is a female business leader who has been in the forefront of animal welfare, rights activism. She is also an entrepreneur and has been campaigning for the rights of animals way before it became cool to do that. I'm pleased to welcome Otara Gunewardene. Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you so much for waking up this early to come on our program.
Usually up.
Otara, over the past few weeks, we've seen the manner in which the debate with regard to animal rights, cruelty against animals, has taken on once again. We sometimes tend to wait for an incident to take place in order to start the activism. However, these things happen every single day. Can we talk about the current process with regard to cruelty against animals? The laws with regard to this are quite antiquated. The Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Ordinance was brought back all the way back in 1907.
Yep.
And there has been quite a lot of activism to bring in the Animal Welfare Bill. Yep. However, it's still on the table and nothing has been done with regard to it. Let's talk a bit about the whole situation.
Yes, so obviously the incident that happened with Charlie was obviously very, it was horrific and terrible. And of course it has, you know, as bad as it has helped bring a lot of, you know, things to a head, and a lot of people have realized what happens in Sri Lanka. But those of us who are doing this on a day-to-day basis, we see a lot of, you know, we see a lot of love and kindness as well, but we see a lot of cruelty as well with regards to animals, not only dogs, but other animals as well. And you know, for us who work with street dogs, you know, it's a regular thing of rescuing dogs who have been burnt with acid, burnt with hot water, dogs who have been beaten, pregnant mothers who have been beaten, pregnant mothers whose stomachs are beaten to kill their babies. You know, it's horrific, but it's often difficult to highlight that because we don't know who has done it. We always find the animal after the incident has happened. Nobody knows who did it when it happened. Somebody just calls you know, for help after some kind person who has obviously seen the animal suffering calls for help. So there's not a lot that it can't go much further like it has now, because there's an owner to this dog, and obviously the owner can take action, or other people can take action for the owner. So it is something you know, we have been seeing. It's been there. I think also with social media it's far more visible now to many, so I think it's good because it helps for people to understand what's happening. It helps to understand the great need to make changes urgently in our laws. And we're running on a bill from 1907 for animals, which is highly antiquated, highly dated, and it really gives them very little rights and very little things you can do. Even if you find this person who has been cruel or done a cruel act, it's what you can do, the fines, the jail terms, it's very minimal. So it's very difficult to make a case and to give the actual punishment needed to those who have done it.
As someone who is actively engaged in this field, you run a shelter for...
No, I don't have a shelter, but we rescue and we rehome.
A rescue operation?
Yeah.
Sure. And through that you are aware of the regulations or lack thereof when it comes to street dogs, if I'm not mistaken. What are some of the loopholes that you see, Otara?
I mean, like I said, it's not only street dogs, it's also with other animals, like for instance, the situation with the pet shops, which is absolutely horrific in Sri Lanka, the way the animals are kept in cages, the way the whole condition they are kept in, which is to do with dogs, dogs and birds, and sometimes often fish as well, who are in terrible conditions in plastic bags and different situations like that. So yes, I mean, it is something that has been going on the new Animal Welfare Bill was actually put together by a group of animal welfare advocates who have been at this for a really long time, way back, like up to 8, 9, 10 years ago, and they've been struggling over the years to get it passed. Eventually, I got involved very much later, so 3 years ago it was actually passed by the cabinet, but since then it's still been going back and forth, and it hasn't been sent to Parliament, for approval. So there are a lot of there are a lot of changes in that, which will give much far greater rights to the animals than what they have today. Of course, the wildlife are on a separate set of laws, and they do have far more rights and laws than the domestic animals.
Do you think that the existing lawmakers have the political will to bring in this new law to protect the rights of animals?
Yes, I mean, I think, if there's a will, there's a way, and I think, it's not a priority, but it should be, because the people are changing. I mean, I think there's a misunderstanding and a disconnect with understanding the amount of people nowadays who actually want change for animals, who care about animals. It's definitely different to what it was several years ago. I have been far more involved now after I left Model, of course, 4 years ago, and I understand far more, and I see the change with people. It's so visible, and there's still kind of a thing of where it's not so important to do, but I think it's misunderstood. Okay. That is where the people are concerned, and what they request and what they want, and of course what is right for the animals and for a country, where we must care for all beings that live in our country, and it's so important. And also globally, I think you will see the massive change happening to do with animals. So many things are changing, giving them more rights, and ending of circuses, ending of elephant rides, ending of so many things, and there's a reason for that, because people are understanding, how cruel we have been. Things that we thought were always right, we understand now are not, is not right. So I think we too need to make those changes.
Let's also talk a bit about education reforms and the importance to inculcate qualities of tolerance, compassion, not only to people but also to animals, all living beings, as you earlier said. Because if you teach someone to care and respect animals from a young age, they tend not to ill-treat animals when they grow up. So this is quite important that we inculcate this, incorporate this in our school syllabuses. How do you think a process like that should take place?
I think it's important to have it as part of the curriculum, as part of what people need to, what children need to learn. And it's not just what they learn, it's also through experience. I think as humans, we're all born to love animals, to live with nature, to love nature, but with things that we are taught and with things that we are told is far more important than that, our perceptions change and our interests change, and then we forget how important it is that the other lives that we live in our communities with and in our country with, and how important it is to understand their suffering and their pain, and how important it is for us not to inflict that pain on them and do what we can not to. So I think as children, that's important. With the work with Embark and the work I do, we encourage the children to come for adoption days, and to even as young volunteers. We have volunteers as young as 7, 8 years old who come and help us out, and it's so wonderful to see that is their real childhood. That is who children really are, who love animals, who are not afraid to interact, and who will grow up to be better understanding adults and better leaders and better representatives of their community and the country. And I think it's so important as a country to teach children the compassion and the importance of it, not only for humans but for all sentient beings.
Sure. However, Otara, there's a school of thought that animal rights, animal welfare, this is a topic that is often spoken of at coffee shops. It's a Colombo 7 kind of topic. That is one school of thought. However, we need to take this conversation to the villagers, to the masses. It needs to disseminate to all of the country. How do you think the government needs to get involved in ensuring that this debate, this conversation goes to the masses? Because it's not an isolated kind of...
I disagree in that. I actually see that when I travel, I've traveled a lot, and I've spent a lot of time in the areas outside of urban areas and outside cities, and they are far more compassionate than those in urban areas and those of us in cities. Because they're far more connected to the ground, far more connected to nature, and far more connected to living with all lives, with all beings. And the greatest issue we see is more in urban areas, where as soon as we become modernized, we think we don't need the other beings, and it can be anything from birds. We'll cut down all our trees in our garden and think just the grass is what's the greatest, but we've cut down, we've got rid of so many ecosystems for so many birds and other insects and animals and everything in our garden, but because we don't realize, I feel we lose the connection of it. And I think it's that's why I think it's so important when the more we grow and the more we progress, that we understand who we truly are in our roots and who we truly are as Sri Lankans, and what Sri Lanka truly is. It's a nation, it's a compassionate nation that has always lived in harmony with our animals, with our wildlife, with our domestic animals. But it's modernization that's changing that and making us believe that having a dog in a cage is what is good, whereas earlier they used to be free. So a lot of changes like that are sort of new things that are coming into play. And so yeah, I think it's not restricted just to that's where I think the difference is.
Okay, that's a very interesting answer, and thank you for that. Let's come back to the Animal Welfare Bill. Enacting this, bringing this into law, implementing this is of paramount importance, not just for dogs, but also for elephants, for example, because the Cruelty to Animals Ordinance also deals with elephants, for example. However, in Sri Lanka at present, we see the manner in which rights are violated.
So, like with elephants, they have a lot of laws. I mean, they have a lot of,
but a lot
of things are not implemented. But it's to do mostly with the domestic animals, with birds, with poultry, and with pet shops, with dogs, with cats, and the domestic animals are the ones who need it the most now, because that's where the big gap is at the moment.
I'd like to draw your attention to the human-elephant conflict, which is an issue faced by several districts in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
There is no concrete mechanism to ensure that the interests of both groups, the conflict, are protected adequately. There are only short-term measures, for example, electric fencing or firecrackers. Invariably, one party always loses. How do you think the state mechanism needs to bring in probably international systems or experts? How should this issue be resolved in your opinion?
I believe we have all the solutions within us, and I believe we have all the solutions within Sri Lanka. We just don't ask the right people for the right solutions. We don't listen to the right people for the right solutions. And it is a conflict, obviously, and an issue for both, for people and animals, for the elephants. But I think it's important to understand that it's a conflict that humans have created, and it's only the humans that can solve it. In almost all the areas, these are places where they have lived in harmony with all animals, including the elephants, and they never had a problem. I've been to so many of them, and they never had a problem before. But suddenly, without proper planning, some development happens. When the development is happening, I think we need to understand what is one of our key attractions, what is one of our key things that we need to protect, and it is our wildlife, it is our elephants. And if that is looked at first and everything else is done around it, the development and everything else is done around it, a lot of things can be resolved by that. And it is important that people don't have the conflict, and it is important that the elephants don't have the conflict as well. They didn't wake up one day and decide to go and be mean and nasty and attack people. They don't want it. That's not what elephants want, that's not what animals want. They want to live in peace. And we must understand that our wildlife is one of the greatest attractions that we have, and it's one of the things that will make us wealthy in the future. And it's one of our greatest assets and our greatest wealth. And we must think of that as a priority and protect it and do things around it to ensure that it's not affected, it's not disrupted, and where we can live in harmony. I'm someone who thinks that we can develop and we can live in harmony together with our wildlife, together with a very rich biodiversity, which almost no country in the world has, and have great development as well.
Do you think that there is a disconnect between legislators on the one hand and animal rights advocates?
Not so much with animal rights advocates, but with understanding the importance where animals have to have rights and where they should live a happy life as well in our country, and that it is important. I think that has not come up as being something that must be looked at. And I think if you look at a global context, like I said, it is important to look at because people everywhere in the world now consider it important. And when we get from our organization, we constantly get requests from tourists, and the requests are always not to do with any issue with the animals, but it is to do with our cruelty, how they see dogs in cages, how they're trapped inside, they're not allowed out, how their dogs are in chains, how they are beaten. That is the issue. So that is the biggest complaint we get. It's about the cruelty. It's not about anything else. They love everything else. They love the dogs, and they love the country, and they love the wildlife and the nature and the people, of course. But it's those incidences of cruelty which is visible to many tourists who travel. And those are the requests we get, and those are the questions we get on why we are so cruel. And I think that has to be changed with education, with laws, with implementing the laws. There are laws sometimes which are not implemented, and I think that's what's important to do. If you look at, if you want the international recognition for being a country that cares for all beings that live in our country, and I think it's time to do it. I think it's a really important step to take.
On its list of priorities, do you think that parliamentarians have animal welfare at the very top?
No, they don't, but I know there are a lot of other concerns to address as well. There's people welfare as well, which is also high on the priority list which needs to be addressed. But they both go hand in hand, and I think it's important to do both. I think it's possible to do both. It's not one, it doesn't need to be one or the other. It is possible to do both, and I think we should do both, and I think it's possible, and I think it's time to do it.
How do you suppose that in Sri Lanka we can bring in the multiple stakeholders when it comes to the animal welfare debate to one platform, to have a discourse, a conversation on ensuring that the rights of animals are protected?
Well, I think it has been happening. It does happen, and even the bill has been done with many people involved, with many different groups, with animal welfare advocates who I have learned a lot from, and who I have been inspired by, and who've done in silence. They've done so much over the years, which we have not seen. I know now what they have been doing, and we really should be grateful to all of them for what they have done to animals over the years. Now it's far more visible. Some of us are far more visible because of social media and all that. But there are a lot of people who've done a lot, and they have been doing it together as groups over the years. And that is why the bill is where it is even today. Otherwise, it wouldn't even be there where it is. So we have to be thankful to them for all the effort they've taken. And I think together, it's uniting to make a difference is really what matters. And no matter what each one does, separately, individually, we're all different human beings. We all do things differently. And but we all have only one interest, which is a better life for animals, a better life for people, in our country, and I think we all need to unite for that, and we do. I mean, even I think last week you'll see how people got together, and a lot more of the public are getting active as well, and I think that's needed too.
Now we are in conversation with Otara Gunewardene. We're discussing the new proposed law, the Animal Welfare Bill, which seeks to replace the existing Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Ordinance, which was enacted over a century ago. Now, let's take you through some of the main provisions that are envisaged in the new Act, the Animal Welfare Bill at this stage. The most important provision is the establishment of a National Animal Welfare Authority with wide powers, including advising the government on the formulation of a national policy on animal welfare, monitoring the progress of investigations and criminal proceedings relating to offences against animals, supervising and monitoring institutions which provide animal care services. Now, the other offences are abandoning an animal, making an animal available for hunting, castrating an animal unless it's been performed by a qualified veterinarian, confining a bird by means of a ring, chain, etc., administering any poison to an animal. There is also a provision to regulate pet shops so that animals do not suffer while on display. At present, given the years of experience that you have with regard to stray dogs, can you tell us, give us a few instances of the manner in which the laws and regulations in Sri Lanka had proven to be completely insufficient?
Yes, I mean there are many, because for example the pet shop situation, some pet shops are absolutely horrific, the conditions the animals are in, but there's very little that can be done. We get requests every day from people who want us to go to certain pet shops and do something about the in the recent times there are dogs as well, which there wasn't, I think, a few years ago.
Right.
And many of them they have to stand on mesh the whole time. Some of the places we know they're locked up. The shop is locked up at 5. The animals are inside. They go home and they come back in the morning. Most of the time they don't have water, they don't have food. These little puppies are all on their own inside these places. So there are instances like that, and it's very little we can do because there's very little police support, because obviously they don't have the means to follow through on anything. So there are so many cases like that. There are cases of absolute cruel conditions, the dogs living in cages, who are sometimes they don't see even daylight for 24 hours a day in their whole life. And even that is often very difficult to do. Breeding places that are so badly managed, dogs with breeders who are thrown out because they have got sick. Instead of treating them because they have to pay for the treatment, they'd rather throw them out, rather than treat them, and instances like that. So there are so many things that that come up. Birds in cages. Birds trapped in cages, like for example the parrots that are captured and you see on the roads. They are from flocks. People go and trap them every day and take them out of their flocks. And people think that releasing them is a good thing, which obviously it's better than living in the cage, but most of them don't survive because they're used to living in flocks, and when they are released, the single bird is released, most of them can't survive. They're pecked by crows, they're in a whole new area, they don't have their family, they don't have their flock to survive, and they struggle, and most of them don't survive. So we don't see the trail of what happens, of the consequences. When we buy a dog, we don't see the trail. Where was the mother? How is the mother kept? Where was the father? Are they in a cage? What's their health like? We don't make the connection, not only with animals, but with food we eat and with a lot of things. We don't look at the trail of the suffering that we create, and I think it's so important to do that now. It's possible to do especially because of internet and social media and everything that's out there. And once you start seeing it, and once you start understanding the trail that we create, then you start making the changes of not wanting to be a part of that cruelty.
My final question to you is about the importance of compassion. Sometimes we tend to not be concerned about an issue if we are not personally impacted by it. Given this situation, how do we ensure that we are more aware we are more concerned and we are more well, drawn towards the cause of animal welfare, animal rights. If we see an animal in a cage or an animal being beaten, should we not, why should we not turn the other way? Why should we go and ask for help?
Yeah, I mean, you know, as humans, we must do that. I mean, I think we are all compassionate human beings. We all have hearts. We all love to, we don't want to hurt humans. We don't want to hurt animals, but sometimes we just choose not to. A lot of it is because we are taught not to. We are taught not to care. We are taught just to do our bit and not get involved in other things. But I think that's changing, and I think you'll see a lot of people far more concerned, far more active. I see it. I see great change happening, great positive change. And you know, it's people that can make the difference. It can be, you can have different politicians, different people in government, but it's a great movement of people that will bring great change. And you can only bring great change by improving your knowledge, by wanting to understand. If you want to understand the impact you make on this earth and what you are involved in, the suffering that you are involved in, and you take the time to look at that with the food you eat, with the milk you drink, with the animals you buy, you know, even the parrots that you buy, where are they coming from? How are they kept? Do you see how they are stored in boxes, in cardboard boxes? Is that how they should live, so that you can buy it and release it? So I mean, these are the questions you should ask, and you must take the time to look. When you look, when you see, you will make the changes, because you don't want to be part of it.
For the future of Sri Lanka in terms of better ensuring animal rights, protection and welfare?
Very hopeful. Some days not so hopeful, but very hopeful. I believe great change can happen, and people can make it happen. We can make it happen.
Otara, Gunewardene, thank you very much for making it to our studios. Thank you for giving that message of hope and optimism, and for having faith in the system, very importantly. Minister of Justice, if you're watching us right now, the Animal Welfare Bill needs to be enacted, it needs to be enforced, implemented in Sri Lanka. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.